I got something I'd like to say. I spent 24 years in the Florida Army National Guard, retiring as a first sergeant. I'm very proud of my service. When Mr. Oakham asked the people to recognize Mr. Kuhlman's service in the military of our country, I clapped. The scowls I got from some of these board members made me sick. You may not like Mr. Kuhlman, or a lot of people that serve in the military, but I don't care who it is. If they served our country in the military, I'm going to applaud for them. I'm going to recognize them because they've done things. You know, I spent all those years when a lot of people in this room was at the beach or at the mountains on vacation. I was in the jungles of Panama. I was in a lot of other places in the world training to go to war at any time if I had to. But I don't appreciate, because I clapped to recognize his service to our country, the scowls I got from some people on this board. I won't forget that.
Okay, moving on into the incubator project.
I don't get to ask any questions of you. Do I get a question to ask of you?
When we have board member comments.
Okay.
The next item on the agenda is the incubator. The subcontractor bidding has been completed and they actually have begun to do the tear out of the building, gutting all the unnecessary fixtures and drywall and lighting that's going to be replaced. The first invoice or deposit to the company that has received the award for the bulk of the equipment for the fill line ball pack has been issued, and that equipment is going into production. It'll take probably between 8 and 10 weeks for that equipment to be completed and brought over to be installed into the building. The mechanical and electrical this week, and it is moving well. It is probably 60 days behind the calendar I would like it to be on, but it is what it is. And we have been in touch with the Cantus frequently and with the paddleboard company, and they fully understand everything that's going on with the building. And that's the only comments that I have at this time. Does anyone have any questions related to the incubator?
Have we had any hits from anybody, other people interested in participating?
We have had several, Mike. I do expect to see some new applications in the Economic Development Authority grant cycle this time. Sarah's going to go into that with you in a bit, but part of the problem is we're not actively marketing it yet because we're trying to let its identity be defined, and if the fill line dominates the building, I think at some point we want to be careful about other businesses that go in there because they may not necessarily be compatible with what's going on with the fill line. And we do have at least one other company that will be making an application, maybe two, for this next cycle. And so I'm trying to see if it gains its identity that way, but otherwise we will be soliciting others to utilize the building. Other questions on the incubator? Commerce Park zoning. Well, we lost again. We're evaluating the arguments and discussion related to the reason the zoning board turned us down. I am not satisfied that arguments maybe on both sides are entirely correct. I suspect that regardless of what happens, it will move on to the Board of County Commissioners and they will address it. But I will continue to look at the issues that were presented in the meeting the other night, and if we can find compromises that will be suitable to the board and to the community, we will try to reach those compromises. I don't really have anything else to say about it at this time. Would any of you care to comment? Any thoughts? The vote was,
Bill, does it have to do with the residential lots there? Is that what the conflict is or not?
well, I'm not sure. If there were any residents there, I didn't hear them speak. The neighbor to the east, John Terrell, spoke, but he spoke more passionately about concern for the school. And the issue appears to be those uses that could occur in the ICBD, Industrial Commercial Business District zoning, but it appeared to me that the uses they were hypothetically suggesting may happen in the park, they could happen, but they would only happen by special exception. And many of those same uses could happen in many other zoning uses in our community. Ag has a ton of special exceptions that allow uses that some folks would determine to be heinous, but they're still only going to occur if the applicant goes through a detailed, arduous zoning process to obtain a special use, and including a public hearing. So I don't argue that the uses that they suggested might occur in this park could occur, but I don't think they would occur with the processes that are in place. And if we're going to preclude all uses because of our fear of a future public hearing and not relying on those who happen to be on the board at that particular time to make sound judgment, then maybe we should have an extremely restrictive land use policy that doesn't allow for any flexibility. Again, it is what it is. So, next item on the agenda, you're not a board member, I'm addressing the board, Mr. Coolman. Is that okay?
No. What you just said was false.
Mr. Coolman, I have the microphone, you don't.
That's why you won't let me talk. What you said was unaccurate.
I'm going to move on.
Absolutely not accurate.
Next item on the agenda, Floorcan. The Floorcan people, relative to our negotiations, were to make a $100,000 deposit to the IDA through the construction process of the building. We suggested that they do this because it's non-refundable if we got into the construction of the building and they decided to walk. It's a non-refundable $100,000 binder deposit. We've received it, and we would like to address how we give them that deposit back. And we have reached a verbal agreement that I would like permission from the board, or at least we'll have some discussion on it. I feel like that when they are ready for occupancy in the building, that they will have between $3 and $5 million worth of investment in the building. And my position is that once they have fulfilled their obligation to put all of their manufacturing equipment, take occupancy of the building, establish a payroll here, that we be in that year when that happens, that we give them the $100,000 back as a rent credit at $10,000 a month during that year. And I'm seeking permission from the board to accept an agreement like this, to modify the contract, to accept it if you so desire. Otherwise, we can just hang on to it indefinitely.
Well, that's what's got me confused. It says in here, and begin making the monthly lease payments. Well, I thought they had a 30 or 36 month free rent out there. And you're talking about as soon as they build a building and all, to start paying the lease payments, then we're giving them money, which I would agree to that, but this has got me confused here.
No, you're saying it right. What they're saying is that once they take occupancy of the building and they begin to make lease payments, that they be able to recapture their binder deposit in the first 10 months at $10,000 a month. And that would clean it up.
3 years later.
Whenever it starts, yes. We would still have the money for 3 years. I mean, we have the money now.
Yeah, okay.
So, and
That just didn't make sense to me right there.
And that does raise another point. I feel like at some point we will be questioned as to where we deposit the money, and I need some,
I have a bank account.
I
I'd be
need
happy to
some,
hold it for you.
I need some, I would suggest that we put it in our general fund account. And I would like permission from the board to deposit the money in the general fund account, and we will recognize it on our books until such time that it is retired due to rent payments at some point in the future. And I'm requesting that you give us permission to do
If you
that.
put it in a private like mine, it would be confidential.
It is interest bearing, but it's like 0.18%.
May not be small.
It should be held.
It is. I mean, it's,
I don't know where you're going to deposit it, but if it has anything to do with my employer, I'm staying, I'm not going to talk about it. Okay?
that's great.
Come on.
It's not
What's the pleasure of the board?
I'll move, we do that.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion from the board members? Any public comments? If not, all those in favor? Anyone opposed?
Staying.
And do we have the form for Lori? Thank you. Motion carries. We'll move on into EDA grant applications.
So it's that time again to send our applications into the EDA. Applications are due May 31st, but we wanted to go ahead and bring them before the board so that we had time to do any refinements before we do our final submission. We will be submitting 6 applications for this cycle. One of them is for year 2 of the incubator. That figure will include year 2 operations money, some placeholding money for some of the other companies that have shown interest in coming into the incubator. They will most likely have their own applications, but for our services that we provide to those companies as a part of the incubator, we'll have some placeholding for that. We will be asking for $1,350,000 for the incubator round 2. We're also going to be submitting an application for an additional spec building, $4 million. We continue to fill up our spec buildings before we have, the chance to have them empty for a while, which is good. But at this point, we don't have any vacant buildings available for rent, so we will submit an application for an additional building.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
our spec buildings haven't been normally costing that much. So is it more than one spec building you're talking about? Usually about $1.5 million or so is what we've been spending on the spec building.
Correct. Typically what has happened is we have applied in the past to the EDA for $1 million for the spec building, and then come back to the IDA to provide any supplemental funding that might be necessary. So at this point, the application that I'm submitting is for $1 million.
Oh, I thought you said 4 million.
No, $1 million.
Oh,
$1 million. I'm sorry.
You think 4
$1 million.
Yeah, okay, okay, I'm sorry, 1 million, okay.
So, for $1 million, for $1 million.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry.
The other application that we're submitting is for $500,000, which is a supplemental monetary value for Florican. The IDA will be providing the remainder portion of those funds to finish construction of the building, but we are asking the EDA to provide $500,000 for that purchase, or for the building construction. We will be again submitting our application for the Economic Development Office operations. We have done this for the past 2 years, and we have asked the EDA for $150,000 for the past 2 years each time. It has been a very productive way for us to keep from going into the BOCC's general revenue as much as possible. A couple of years ago, we decided that if we could find another avenue to alleviate some of that burden from the county commission, that we would do so. We had some statute changes and language changes in the EDA, which enabled us to file a straight economic development application to the EDA. And so for the past 2 years, we have supplemented our funding with that $150,000. So we'll be doing that again this year. And that will start for fiscal year 14-15, October 1st. The other application that we will be submitting is for the water sewer corridor. This is another round 2. We received a grant in the last cycle for water sewer corridor, which is the expansion and connection of water and sewer between Bowling Green, Zoffo, and the city of Wauchula, tying them all together. We've been working with the city of Wauchula currently on that project. We also have engaged Chastain Skillman and Killebrew out of Polk County, who have been helping with the design of that project and the permitting. So it is underway. We initially, when we submitted the application last year, we submitted it as a multi-year build-out project. So the EDA was aware when they awarded it that we would be coming back the next year for additional funding to finish round 2.
How much is that for?
So this one will be for around $500,000. The last one was for $600,000 or $650,000. $450,000. So this will be another $500,000. And so that should complete that project for round 4, stage 2 of the project. And then the last application that we're submitting is for the pretreatment facility out here at the park in conjunction with the county. A while back, when we submitted the application for the Sheriff's Command Center for that construction, we also we did a kind of a dual application for building of the Sheriff's Command Center and then pretreatment facility as well for the park. As time went on, I believe that some of the designs and desires and needs of that pretreatment facility changed. I don't know if you want to go into that aspect any at all. Regardless, we have realized that what we thought we needed in the past is not what we need now. So we have been working with Park Winter and Half Acre. We had a meeting out here actually a couple of weeks ago. We have an initial budget for that project, and it takes us to $315,525. We have a remaining about $85,000 in the previous grant from the dual application for the Sheriff's Command Center / pretreatment facility. So we will be using the remainder of those funds and then asking for the balance to come in a round 2 funding cycle for the pretreatment facility. So those are all of the applications that we're submitting this cycle. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Sarah, I have a question. The floor can, the 500,000 additional for floor can, what was the original, what was there an original request and grant from the EDA for that also?
There is.
It was 2, okay.
Correct.
So that'll be 2 plus 5, okay.
Plus 5, and then the IDA has put in additional money for this project. We believe that this project will probably be about a $4 million project. So taking the first EDA spec building money, adding the supplemental onto it, and then what the IDA is putting in will take us to $4 million.
We will have the turnkey preliminary budget on that building by the end of next week. And at that point, we'll be able to better assess what the total cost is going to be. And it'll vary even from that, but we don't even have a preliminary yet, so.
And this building is a lot larger than the ones that we have been doing. Our spec buildings,
Is it big enough for what they need?
it's 80,000
I
square
know,
feet.
but I
So.
understand that, but I heard one time they needed 100,000. That's just what I'm scared that we're gonna build something too small.
Well, it's 80, but the sidewalls in areas are up to 30 feet tall, and they can
Go high?
They can put extension roofs on for the storage of palletized product when they're finished.
Sarah, on the incubator project, how did we arrive at the figures that we are asking for in the grant application?
We basically took the budget that was submitted with our application last cycle for the incubator. In that budget, we included operations that would take us through for the first year and then for the second year. So I'm taking the operations budget and then adding to it the additional placeholder money for those companies that we would like to assist that will be coming in. I've put in $100,000 for 2 companies. I've put in additional money for the Cantus as well as Trey Flemmer. If you remember, those 2 applications were combined as one. We are managing the Cantus and the paddle sports applications. So for additional funding for their round 2, we have included their money into the total figure of the 1.3. So they're going to need an additional, we put in for Trey $200,000, and for the Cantus, we put in $200,000. And then I have 2 other businesses that I've placed $100,000 each, and then the remainder of that is the operations money for year 2 to run the facility, actually.
But they will have budgets before you.
I will, yes. This is basically the very first step in getting the application in. Once I get it in, we'll have the first round of meetings where I will have a finalized budget, which they're working on now. I've actually met with someone who is helping them create those budgets yesterday. And I will have a final budget from the Cantus, a final budget from Peace River Paddle Sports, a final budget from one of the additional companies that is looking to come in, and a final budget for what exactly round 2 operations money is going to be.
Okay, you're talking about, you're talking about money for them on their second year.
Correct.
All right, when are we gonna make any rules about how long they can stay in there and how long we can keep funding this? I mean, I think they're gonna do a good job and make it, but still, we don't need to get into a 10 or 20 year process of funding these people.
You are, I concur.
Wow, wow. Really?
We have to do that, but our focus thus far has been on getting the building retrofitted. And they, we had hoped that they would begin operating by the middle of March, and it's probably going to be the middle of June. It's just been, well, if you recall, we didn't really get the building closed till the last day of last year. And once we got closed on it, we could begin starting the assessment of the building and dealing with fire suppression and other issues in a building like that it takes a while to work through it. But I feel like today we have a very good, flexible design criteria that will work for a multitude of uses, but I still want to focus on the fill line if we can. And we are still recommending that these grants be done through the IDA because it's much easier for us to manage the money through the EDA than for the EDA to just be directly funding them.
How much more room have we got in there after the field line and the paddleboard? How much more room we got for 2 more people or 3 more people?
We're probably only utilizing about 6,000 square feet with those 2 operations, and there's about 38,000 in the building. So there's plenty of extra space there.
That's good. Okay.
Yes, Lori?
The fill line, does it have to be in a clean room environment?
It is. It's isolated and
USDA or something?
And we're actually, just to kind of give you an update on that, we're actually in the process of filling out all of those applications and getting those certificates now. We've been filling out the USDA application as well as some of the other applications that will allow the Cantu specifically to do and house the particular products that they have in that facility. So, and we're working again with Autumn Bloom and Jay Richards, who have been, absolutely wonderful to work with and help us through this process of knowing exactly what applications need to be submitted, how to design the clean rooms, exactly what needs to be put in that. So we've been relying on them heavily to really make those decisions for us. So I feel like we have a pretty good handle on those aspects of the fill line for sure.
Sir, who will be responsible for cleaning the line? The individual companies, or will we have somebody hired to do that?
Well, probably both. I mean, we have someone hired already as the building operations manager. He will be responsible, for the entire building, for the fill line, for managing all of that and making sure that it is kept up to standard. So I would say that he would definitely be managing that and overseeing it. And then I, of course, would hope that the individual companies, after they were finished, would have some type of policies.
For their contract.
Exactly. That after they use it, they would clean it.
We also have a person who has a competency in fill line operations, startup and shutdown, who is about to retire from organics. And this person is going to be available to us at least on a part-time, if not initially a full-time basis, to make certain that all the competencies that need to be learned and taught in the fill line facility will happen. So
I just think that probably is very key, have somebody sign off of it as far as inspections and all, where we got one person to deal with it.
well, the Florida Department of Agriculture, the USDA, and the Department of Business and Professional Regulation all have a say-so in the fill line and how it's run and managed, and I think we'll be fine with that. So.
And I'm actually working with Workforce right now to provide some trainings for this person that we've hired as the business operations manager to kind of get him certified in the good management practices, some, clean room, any type of food production. I've just been talking to them about any training that they can provide in those areas of, even restaurant practices that he can be certified in that will, ensure that this person has pretty good knowledge of how these facilities need to be treated. So
That's good, but what else is this guy going to do when he's not working on the field line?
We're going to try to put him in business. We're going to let him draw with chalk.
I mean, he'll be responsible for the entire building. Obviously, we will have to have someone that, is there on a daily basis, 8 hours a day, running the incubator itself. This person, along with someone else will probably be in charge of,
But what are they
hopefully
gonna
doing
do? I mean,
that.
I know this is probably not part of this discussion at this time, but when you have an incubator, and the people that's in there, you give them a key to the building, they go in there and do their work, then they go home at 8 o'clock. Or
This
nine-
is different
or
than
whenever they go
that.
home.
This
So-
is not, you have to remember, this incubator is taking companies from the ground, starting point, and really giving them an education and teaching them and walking them through the process of how to grow their business, manufacture their products, and get them out into the marketplace. When we initially started this was not just we give you a key, you come in and use the fill line to fill your products. This is an actual, education. It's an incubator is actually incubating the company from the beginning all the way to the point that they're ready to leave the incubator and are successful and have the tools necessary to be able to operate out on their own.
Well, I think the Cantons pretty well know how to run a business.
They know how to do they know how to do some parts, but not all.
How involved should we get in running somebody's business?
I don't think that our goal is to be involved in running their business. Our goal is to teach them how to run their business by providing them with people who have those competencies. They need help
Relative to
in
the
marketing.
Cantus, they're good at being pollinators, and they're good at collecting honey from their pollinating operation. They do not have a very good sophistication with putting the honey into retail packaging.
The fill line, I understand, Bill. The fill line, I understand, but it's after the fill line has been used and it's cleaned up, what's this person gonna do? They're marketing for them? Or
Well, we hope to have a large number of users and also to do contract fill line work in the facility to fill up the voids. And I can also tell you that probably not in this first year, because I don't think there's going to be any time lags with the person that's hired there. I think they're going to be overwhelmed trying to get everything done. But if that work schedule becomes less and it is not a full-time job, we could begin looking at letting that person handle some of these other issues with the Commerce Park. As it grows and becomes larger and we have more buildings, the volume of work keeping up with just the property management is enormous. And I really wouldn't mind in a year, maybe a year and a half, if that is running smoothly and it's not taking a full 40 hours, that we utilize this person to help us manage the IDA's properties. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Sarah, I know a few times you said operating expenses. Are there also fixed asset costs factored in for the fill line and things like that?
We pretty much put the majority of the fixed costs in year one, and have, been pretty right on with our assumptions so far. But I have put, at least a padding in there of any unforeseens that may come up or additional fixed costs that, we have to incur of some sort.
And you got a picture of this still on, so we, or something, so I can see what it looks like?
We have documents.
We can
Is it
send
still the
that.
same thing that Alden had over here?
Yes. The fill line equipment itself, the initial order is just in the neighborhood of $100,000 for the equipment. But what we found after the actual bids came in around $200,000, but we found that we could go back and select individual pieces of equipment and buy them separately. And I suspect that the total investment in fill line is going to be somewhere around $150,000 to $165,000. And it's just an assembly of processing equipment to batch, blend, process, fill, and label into various container sizes.
And then you have capsules versus liquid and all that.
We have dry and wet capabilities.
So the intent is that before we actually start spending this money, back to Donald's point, that we're going to have some discussion on the budget and operations and how we're going to actually run the incubator, but in the meantime, we need to go ahead and do the
Correct.
placeholder.
Yes. If you remember, the last time we did this, I have to have permission from the board to at least submit the application. That comes May 31st. We then have several months in there that we can begin to refine those applications, get the budgets together before we have to go to presentation. So within those couple of months, when we're refining those, we'll then bring those back to the board and sit down and go through the budget separately with the board and have discussion on that. But in order to get our applications in, I need a motion to at least submit an application, which is why I'm here today. Not necessarily to really go over any hard figures, but simply to tell you what the applications are and get permission to even submit to the EDA.
So the applications don't constitute approval of the expenditure of any of these monies?
Correct.
Just for you to go make
Right.
the applications to the EDA?
Absolutely.
And that process won't be finished until September.
Correct. Yes, final award will not take place until September. So we have quite a bit of time between now and then to have a lot of discussion and really put together those budgets. And again, David Knoll with the SBDC is working with several of the companies individually to create their budgets for their individual needs, which we will then put into our package, and we'll be able to bring those before you before presentation time to really look at them and kind of dive into the costs associated with it.
Any other questions from board members for Sarah or Bill? If not, we'll open for a motion.
So moved.
And is your motion on all of the grant applications? Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? Any other discussion from board members? Any public comments? Mr. Coleman?
Hey, these EDA grant cycles, you know these things are coming up. I think, was there 3 of them per year? Two per year? One, well, there used to be more than one cycle at the EDA. There should be several cycles at the EDA. Now,
There's only always been one.
if you know when this is coming up, and we're waiting until the last possible second, and then we're at a meeting right now, and there's somebody sitting in a room that we're not on the board, and they come in here, and Ms. Pelham repeatedly said, here is what we're going to do. I wrote a letter a couple of days ago to Vanessa, and I said, I believe that this board is the tail of the dog. I believe this board is down here swaying at the end of that tail, and you got a few people. You see the smirk in that guy right there? You got a few people in this EDO office that are cooking this stuff up. They know that money's there, and they got to come up with a bunch of applications to try to get as much of that money as they can. That's the name of the game. This incubator thing, Mr. Samuel said, somebody came up with this incubator idea. Somebody went to a trade show or some conference or something and came back all hot to fire about some incubator fill line thing. It's unbelievable. You have no idea what you're going to do. You should start with the basic, a great big package of how you're going to do the project. You have no idea what you're going to do. And now, the first question, of course, we start hearing these things about, we've already got a manager, an operations manager. Did anybody in this room know about that until this morning? I didn't. I haven't been. Who is it?
Who's in the minute?
Who? What's the name? Who?
Jim Stein.
Was that position formally established by the board?
We went through workforce to hire that.
By the board? Did this board create a position to use
Do you
public
have
money?
comments relative to the grant application?
Yeah, you're looking for money to pay the guy. That's my comment. How did this happen, that these people were selected?
Henry.
Was it advertised?
Out of the EDA grant.
Doesn't matter, it's public money. Is it advertised, all public money, Mr. Lambert? Was it advertised, posted, interviewed, all of this stuff? I'm asking the question, if it was, thanks. If it wasn't, it has the appearance, as so many hires are done by this board, of friends and relatives, close relatives, Mr. C, being hired with public money by this board and favors being done, and that this money is used as a conduit to come down from outside and go through, at this point, an incubator instead of one of your grant recipients, and come back and end up benefiting people.
Final comments,
People.
Mr. Coleman?
Thank you. I think you should leave most of that money, and it shouldn't be under your control, leave most of that EDA money for infrastructure, so that we make this county with these corridors so that businesses will want to come in here and not have to pick and choose between a couple of spec buildings that you guys put together. Corridor money is where that EDA money ought to go. Shouldn't be your money. You already have your money.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman.
Thank you.
Back to your comments and to address your comments and hopefully put your issue to bed of the advertising of the position. As Sarah mentioned, it was posted and advertised through Heartland Workforce before we hired Mr. Stein. It was posted and advertised through Heartland Workforce. Thank you.
We did actually advertise that position online through Craigslist, LinkedIn. Did you go to Indeed at all? We received about 10 applications. We interviewed 3 people. 1 was from out of town. The other 2 do live here. The application or the advertisement for that particular position, as we began the interviewing process and as we kind of got a little bit deeper into the process of what the fill line was going to be and what level it was going to kind of take on, we kind of ended up morphing somewhat from what the advertisement was to include someone who also had the competencies to run a fill line. So the 10 applications that we got, we felt that we had 3 applicants that possessed all of those qualifications, had specific knowledge in fill line operations, manufacturing, and then we interviewed those 3 and then chose Mr. Stein, who is a Hardy County resident actually.
Sarah, is there any reason why we didn't put it in the local paper? I mean, the commissioners do, the sheriff department does, about any other government entity here does that.
We felt like going through workforce.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but it's the appearance that, hey, everybody does it but us, we're gonna slip around on the side, do it through the back door. That's just the appearance that it has. And that gets us in trouble a lot, is not doing things out in the open, like I think it ought to be done. It's more of an appearance thing, I think, than anything.
The online has a lot more wider readership and casts a wider net to get more candidates.
Well,
And again,
we're
when you
looking
do
for Hardy
run
County
through-
people that we can get them.
I understand, and we ended up hiring a Hardy County person.
And I know you did.
And-
But still, why would you go online across, when you try Hardy County first?
And we absolutely
And
did
then
do
if
that.
you don't get somebody, then fine, then you gotta go to Polk County or DeSoto County or Hillsborough County or something like that.
Well, I think we felt like running it through workforce, we would have the best possible chance of finding someone from Hardy County who would have those competencies and having workforce do that kind of application process for us.
Well,
They have the best reach, I would think, with someone who is searching for a job
Well,
in Hardy County.
they do if the people have gone down there and put their resumes in. But some people just don't do that, and I don't know why. To me, every working person in Hardy County who wants to improve themselves should have their resume down there.
I
I don't
agree.
care who they work for. They should have their resume, because if a company looks, just a company looking to come into Hardin County, will go down there and see, well, is there enough of these qualified people? And the people may be in the county, but they're not on record down there. And they come in here and say, hey, there's 20 people that I could use, there's 20 mechanics on this thing.
Right.
I'll go to Hardin County because I got the workforce there. But if their resumes are on file, then the company may go someplace else.
Who were the
Well-
people that were doing the interviews?
The interviews for the position, Bill, myself, and Kristen.
And what experience do you have as normally an interviewer knows the business, knows the needs, or maybe even bring in somebody that's professional to interview the person? What knowledge do you, Kristen, and Bill have with regarding this?
I appreciate the question and Donald's comments as well, but let's keep our current discussion to the matter at hand, which is the EDA grant applications, and we can take up these considerations on the hiring process, the interviewing process, after we finish this issue. Thank you for your comments, Sarah. Mr. Kirkland?
Thank you, and I was out of order a while ago, but I just wanted to do something real quick, so I apologize. I'm wanting to hopefully make some friendly comments, just food for thought, since you're talking about this incubator thing and field lines and stuff. I had some experiences in life working for Winn-Dixie's Deep South, where I was a maintenance man, mechanic, welder, and that's one of our main thing I've done. If the line's running, I'm eating peanuts off a belt that's coming by roasted and drinking Winn-Dixie Coke. If it's down, I'm fixing it. What I'm trying to get to is the world changes, the containers change. Now, these lines that I worked on, you run the little cold drinks, you run the quart-sized things, you had depalletizers for both, you had palletizers, one of them you had labeled, all these things that you could adjust the machine, just all of the machines to do one thing and then another. But they're still specific for cans. And I don't know, I see honey usually in a jar, but maybe maybe you've already covered it. I'm not trying to start nothing, I'm trying to make comments. You need to consider the versatility of the machinery, and will it be obsolete next week, next year, 2 years from now, and that kind of thing. And then that takes some thought. Bill has told me one time he liked the way I think. Yes, you did. The day you tried to get me to come to work for you. Where I wouldn't be on vacation. In a Board of County Commissioner. So, anyway, I probably, maybe it's comprehensible what I'm saying.
Quickly, let me say this. The companies that we have used are the most contemporary companies around, number one. Number two, we have used a consultant who built the fill line in this facility here. He continues to work with us on an hourly basis, and it's been fantastic. We're also utilizing other people in the industry to help us. In fact, Perry not standing there. Perry's probably done all of the machine work in organics for the last 10 years. And he is also very adept and familiar with every aspect of fill lines. And I think we've put together as good a team as we could at this point, and we'll try to be flexible as we move forward.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to make sure that you need to feel confident that whatever kind of line you're putting in to whatever kind of jars and stuff will be what's going to be happening for a while. Pay for that stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? If not, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? And we will move on into spec building 7.
That is the building on lot 13, which is immediately south of the PF Mann building. We are trying to use the exact same building design that was used for PF Mann. We do not expect any floor modifications at this point in time. The building will be submitted to the planning department as the shell in the next couple of weeks. And that's about all I have to say on it at this point in time.
What about the floor now?
It's going to be a conventional floor.
So we're going to.
And I can't remember if it's 5 or 6 inch. I think it's 6.
So the plan is to go ahead and pour the floor.
Yeah. It's impossible, Donald, to do all of the lighting and wire. It's not really impossible, but it's so much easier to go ahead and put the floor in.
Bill, I remember back 3 or 4 years ago when you had the opposite thought about that we build a shell, we wait until we see what the customer's going to need before we pour the floor, or it's plumbing or under the floor wiring and everything else.
We don't have to pour the floor.
To me, that would be the smart thing to do, is wait.
It's a cost increase. And I hope that by the time we begin construction on the building, that we have a tenant to consider in the building.
Well, I
Be
would
my
hope
preference.
that would be. I would hope so. But let's,
if we do not,
let's don't pour the floor.
if we do not have a tenant by the time we start construction on the building, we don't have to pour the floor.
Well, it's up to the board as a whole, but I'm just saying, to me, I mean, if we went ahead and poured the floor for Keyplex, my God, look what kind of mess would have been in. I mean, you just don't know what somebody may want as far as plumbing and wiring under that floor. We don't need to be getting out there with saws cutting that stuff, trying to build lanes in there to put flooring. I mean, anyway. But
We will look
That's
at
my-
all of those. I'm
humble
not arguing. I believe that it's a fair approach. I do.
thank you.
Before we get into the next 3 items, we'll go ahead and take a brief 10-minute break, because I think we're limited on facilities, so we'll take a 10-minute break, and we'll come back together at 10:25.
I didn't realize it was an HD.
You don't know shit about cans, but I can, you can call me and I can.
Well, I'll do this.